Chapter 1. Young miss, you're awake. Song Wuyo had just opened her eyes, and before she could clearly see everything in front of her, a young woman's voice sounded in her ears. Young miss. Even if she was an abandoned concubine who was banished to the cold palace, the palace maids should still call her Nyang Nyang. How could it be young miss? Song Wuyo's ink-like eyelashes trembled slightly, and a trace of shock flashed through her confused eyes. Wasn't she given 3 feet of white silk by that heartless man? How could her mind be so clear? Could it be that she wasn't dead? How could she not be dead? She remembered very clearly that she had hanged herself in front of that heartless man. Recalling the scene at that time, Song Wuyo felt a dull pain in her neck. But what hurt more was her heart. She had gone through fire and water with him on the battlefield, fought side by side with him, and conquered the country together. He had once sworn to the heavens that if he conquered the country, he would make her his empress and pamper her in the harem. When she accompanied him to build that luxurious palace, she was not the empress. In the end, he went back on his oath to her. Not only did he make her an abandoned concubine in the cold palace, he sentenced her to 9 sins, exterminated her 9 generations, and even gave her 3 feet of white silk. Thinking of this, Song Wuyo's eyes were filled with grief and pain. Young miss, don't be sad. Su Jing, who was sitting in front of the bed, saw the pain in Song Wuyo's eyes and couldn't help but choke with sobs. Su Jing's voice pulled Song Wuyo's drifting thoughts back. Song Wuyo gently blinked her eyes and looked at everything in front of her. The snow-white ceiling, the dazzling light, and the disinfectant lingering in front of her nose, all of this was unfamiliar to Song Wuyo, who had just woken up. Her sad eyes were filled with surprise. Where was this? Was this hell or heaven? When she saw Su Jing in front of the bed, she frowned. Why was this woman dressed so strangely? The surprise in Song Wuyo's eyes was even more obvious. In the surprise, there was also a trace of confusion. Was she dead or not? She secretly pinched her waist. Was the pain so obvious? She's not dead. If she wasn't dead, she should be lying on the old bed in the cold palace. Why was she here? Who was the woman sitting in front of the bed looking at her with concern and heartache? You. Song Wuyo looked at Su Jing and asked softly, her eyes full of questions. Miss, do you want to drink water? Su Jing heard Song Wuyo's slightly hoarse voice and asked with concern. Miss? Song Wuyo frowned. Su Jing was slightly stunned. Seeing Song Wuyo's eyes full of doubt and surprise, she asked nervously, Miss, are you all right? Song Wuyo wanted to ask Su Jing who she was, but a sudden sharp pain in her head made her stop. What's going on? Why does my head suddenly hurt? Song Wuyo frowned. Her face was pale and she looked like she was in pain. Su Jing panicked when she saw this. Miss, are you all right? Were you feeling unwell? I'll call the doctor for you. Su Jing quickly got up and reached out to press the emergency bell on the bedside. It hurts. Song Wuyo endured the pain in her head. It felt like her head was being pierced by long needles. Along with this bone-piercing pain came intermittent fragments. These fragments were like memories. That's right, memories. From the intermittent memories, Song Wuyo finally knew why she was lying here and where she was. It turned out that her soul had traveled through time and arrived in the body of Song Wuyo from the 21st century. Song Wuyo was the famous willful and unruly daughter of the Song family. Later, she became the wife of the all-powerful figure in M City, Gu Yanhao. Song Wuyo had a dream since a long time ago, which was to marry Gu Yanhao. In order to successfully marry Gu Yanhao, Song Wuyo used all kinds of means. In the end, she married Gu Yanhao as she wished. However, facing this willful, unruly, selfish and narrow-minded wife, Gu Yanhao felt nothing but disgust. Song Wuyo could not get Gu Yanhao's love at all. In the 3 years of marriage, he did not touch her at all. Just 3 months ago, Song Wuyo could not take it anymore. She used despicable means to get Gu Yanhao drunk and climbed into his bed. Later, she got pregnant. She wanted to use the child in her belly to get Gu Yanhao's love. She did not expect that after Gu Yanhao knew she was pregnant, he heartlessly asked her to have an abortion. Of course, Song Wuyo refused. This made Gu Yanhao hate her even more. She became even more resentful. She often went to the Song family's old mansion to complain to old Master Song. Otherwise, she would go to the Gu clan group to cry and make groundless accusations. Whenever she saw Gu Yanhao talking to any woman, she would make a fuss and treat the other party as a love rival. She would even scold the other party. This made Gu Yanhao have an idea. He must divorce this woman. Hearing the word divorce, Song Wuyo was deeply affected. Crying and throwing a tantrum were useless. She drove back to the Song family's old mansion crazily. She wanted to complain to old Master Song, hoping that old Master Song would stop Gu Yanhao from divorcing her for the sake of his unborn great-grandson. However, she did not expect to have a car accident on the way. She was injured, had a miscarriage, and was in a coma for 8 days. During the 8 days in the hospital, Gu Yanhao did not come to visit her. This man must have hated her so much that he did not even care about his own flesh and blood. After sorting out these memories, Song Wuyo's headache subsided. Her eyes, which were originally filled with confusion and surprise, gradually became calm. Whether it was in her previous life or this life, she had fallen in love with the wrong person. In her previous life, she and the heartless man were childhood sweethearts. In order to be with him forever, she disguised herself as a man and joined the army with him. They fought side by side. In the end, he gave her a 3-foot white silk. In this life, when she met Gu Yanhao at the age of 13, she fell in love with him at first sight. From then on, he was her center. Everything she did was for him. In the end, what she got was his annoyance and indifference. He was so annoyed that he did not even give her the right to bear his child. The doctor gave Song Wuyo a full-body checkup. Her body was recovering well. She could be discharged after 2 more days of observation. After the doctor left, Song Wuyo sat up and leaned against the headboard. "Miss, are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? I'll buy something for you." Su Jing looked at Song Wuyo with a smile and said with concern. Hearing the doctor say that Song Wuyo was recovering well, Su Jing's worried heart could finally be relieved. "I'm not hungry." Song Wuyo shook her head. Perhaps it was because she had been unconscious for too long, her voice was a little hoarse. "Pour me a glass of water." Her throat and lips were extremely dry. Su Jing smiled. "Okay." Song Wuyo quietly looked at Su Jing, who was pouring water for her. Su Jing was a servant in the Song family. She was about the same age as Song Wuyo. In the Song family, only Su Jing treated her well. When she married Gu Yanhao, she brought Su Jing over. During the 8 days she was unconscious, not only did Gu Yanhao not come to visit her, but even the Song family did not come to visit her. Only Su Jing stayed at the hospital to take care of her day and night. Su Jing poured half a glass of water and brought it over. Just as she turned around, she saw a tall figure standing at the door like a god. Seeing him, Su Jing was stunned. She hurriedly greeted him respectfully. "Young Master Gu." Chapter 2. When Song Wuyo heard the 2 words, "Young Master Gu," she was shocked at first. Then she suddenly turned her neck and looked at Gu Yanhao, who was walking in step by step. The man was tall and had a cold and noble aura. He was dressed in a black suit and his innate domineering and arrogant aura was vividly displayed. Similar. Really similar. Whether it was his appearance or the way he walked, as well as the majestic aura of a monarch, he was exactly the same as that heartless man from her previous life. Song Wuyo slightly frowned. Could it be that people really had past and present lives? Whether or not there was a past and present life, the truth was in front of her. She had been reborn, right? God had treated her well and had given her a chance to be reborn. Song Wuyo bit her lips. If she was reborn, she would never do anything stupid for another man, including this man who was emitting a dangerous aura. Thinking about the pain she had suffered in the cold palace in her previous life and how the previous owner had loved him to the point of madness, Song Wuyo's gaze became indifferent. She turned her head and said calmly, "Su Jing, water." "Miss, here." Su Jing quickly came over and handed the water to Song Wuyo. Song Wuyo took the water and drank it mouthful by mouthful. Her excessive calmness and the way she raised her hand to take the water and drank it silently exuded a dignified elegance which made Gu Yanhao raise his eyebrows. Gu Yanhao came to the bed and stood there, looking down at Song Wuyo like an emperor. Song Wuyo was very thirsty and even her lips were dry, but she drank the water slowly and elegantly. After drinking a few mouthfuls, she gently placed the cup on the bedside table. Out of the corner of her eye, she inadvertently saw a document in Gu Yanhao's hand. Song Wuyo paused and her heart couldn't help but sink. Very quickly, she raised her head and looked at Gu Yanhao with a half-smile in her clear, starry eyes. In the face of Gu Yanhao's cold expression and sharp gaze, she remained calm and collected. If it was before, when the original owner saw him like this, she would have become infatuated. Her eyes would be filled with love as she greedily stared at him and drooled. The Song Wuyo now was no longer the Song Wuyo of the past. "Are you holding the divorce agreement in your hand?" Song Wuyo curled her lips. Her voice was so calm that no one could hear any emotion from it. Her calmness made Gu Yanhao slightly stunned. Her behavior today was strange. In the past, whenever he mentioned divorce, she would cry, throw a tantrum, and threaten to hang herself, refusing to agree to divorce no matter what. Now that she had seen the divorce agreement, how could she be so calm? "Song Wuyo, you only have yourself to blame for this," Gu Yanhao said coldly, his deep and mellow voice carrying a hint of mockery. "That's right, I only have myself to blame." Song Wuyo's lips curled up coldly. The self-deprecating sneer on her lips was very obvious. Gu Yanhao raised his brows as his sharp eyes stared coldly at Song Wuyo. He could clearly see the sneer on her lips. This Song Wuyo made him feel that something was wrong. It was very unfamiliar. "You brought this upon yourself. You caused the death of the child in your stomach. Grandfather is very unhappy and has agreed to our divorce." Gu Yanhao threw the divorce agreement in his hands at Song Wuyo as he said coldly. Even if she appeared calm, he still hated her and couldn't wait to leave her. Song Wuyo lowered her eyes and looked at the divorce agreement. She didn't know if it was because he was too much like the heartless man from her previous life or because the original owner's love for him was too deep. Looking at this agreement, her heart couldn't help but ache. Her eyelashes trembled as she hid the pain in her eyes. She reached out and picked up the divorce agreement. When she reached out, the sleeve slightly pulled up and she accidentally saw a long scar on her wrist. She was stunned and her hand froze. His gaze was fixed on the scar. The red scar on her fair wrist looked especially ugly. This scar was left by the original owner. That was a year ago. The original owner had seen Gu Yanhao and her sister Song Juyue hug. Love couldn't tolerate a grain of sand. She went forward to pull them apart and wanted to hit Song Juyue like a shrew, but she was pushed to the ground by Gu Yanhao. She was in a lot of pain from the fall, but Gu Yanhao was too lazy to look at her as he pulled Song Juyue away. She stood up and chased after them, but Gu Yanhao coldly told her that they would divorce sooner or later. This was the first time Gu Yanhao said the word divorce to her. At that time, the original owner was scared silly and stood there in a daze for a long time. Was he divorcing her so that he could be together with Song Juyue openly? After returning to the villa, she was like a shrew as she argued with Gu Yanhao. When she couldn't cry, she threatened him with death. She picked up a fruit knife from the coffee table and cried in front of Gu Yanhao, "If you insist on divorcing me, I will cut my wrist and commit suicide." Gu Yanhao looked at her coldly and said word by word, "Cut it. It's best if you cut it deep so that you will die faster." After saying that, he turned and went upstairs. As he went upstairs, he called his lawyer and asked him to draft the divorce agreement as soon as possible. She had threatened him with death, but he still wanted to divorce her. In her sadness, she cut her wrist with the tip of the knife and blood spurted out. She didn't die from suicide. The servant called the ambulance and saved her in time. When the news of her suicide reached Old Master Song's ears, Old Master Song didn't allow Gu Yanhao to get a divorce. That was why their marriage lasted until now. She was so silly. After clearing this memory, Song Wuyo laughed at herself. She was so silly to commit suicide for a man who didn't love her at all. Song Wuyo retracted her hand and gently stroked the scar. She said to Gu Yanhao calmly, "If the agreement is reasonable, I will sign it." Gu Yanhao was surprised by her straightforwardness. Gu Yanhao frowned. There was a hint of doubt in his deep, dark eyes. "You will really sign it?" Song Wuyo raised her head and smiled at him. "Of course." Gu Yanhao's gaze deepened as he stared at Song Wuyo. Her smile was as beautiful as a fairy's. Her eyes were as clear as the stars and her smile was bright and beautiful. It was extremely stunning. Song Wuyo was delicate and beautiful to begin with. Her skin was fair and tender, her figure was good, and her facial features were exquisite. If she wasn't so willful, selfish, unruly, shrewish, and loved to be in the limelight, perhaps Gu Yanhao wouldn't hate her so much. "You'd better not go back on your word." Gu Yanhao's voice was deep and magnetic, but it was as cold as a 1,000-year-old ice house. Song Wuyo smiled. "I'm afraid that you'll be the one going back on your word." Gu Yanhao snorted coldly. His eyes were full of sarcasm. "You think you have the right to make me go back on my word?" "Song Wuyo, I can't wait for you to sign it." Song Wuyo's smile turned cold. "Yes, you can't wait to divorce me. You can't wait to leave your own flesh and blood. Gu Yanhao, you're so heartless." When Gu Yanhao heard that, he frowned and looked at Song Wuyo coldly. "You're suspecting that car accident?" Song Wuyo sneered. "Can't I be suspicious?" Gu Yanhao suddenly bent down and pinched Song Wuyo's chin. Suddenly, she could feel his scent. Song Wuyo felt pain from his pinch. She frowned unhappily and looked at Gu Yanhao coldly. Gu Yanhao's gaze was cold. "Song Wuyo, you're courting death." Chapter 3. Song Wuyo looked at Gu Yanhao with a faint smile. "I'm just suspecting. Why are you so agitated?" Gu Yanhao laughed coldly. "Don't assume that everyone is as stupid as you. She only knew how to do brainless things. I am stupid. If I wasn't stupid, why would I fall in love with a heartless man like you?" Song Wuyo laughed coldly. Gu Yanhao was slightly stunned by her coldness. The man's deep eyes became even more serene. He stared fixedly at Song Wuyo's eyes like a sharp sword, as if he was trying to find something in her eyes. "Song Wuyo, you've changed from your previous infatuation. Are you trying to play hard to get with me?" Gu Yanhao tightened his grip. Song Wuyo frowned in disgust and glared at Gu Yanhao. Gu Yanhao, let go of your hand. It hurts so much to pinch her chin. Who would be in the mood to play hard to get with him? If she continued to be infatuated with him after being reborn, wouldn't she be wasting the opportunity that God had given her? In both lifetimes, she had lived for men. In this rebirth, she wanted to live for herself. Gu Yanhao frowned and his gaze turned cold. He seemed to have caught a glimpse of disgust in her eyes just now. This damned woman. She actually dared to have such feelings for him. Not only did Gu Yanhao not let go of Song Wuyo's hand, he even locked it around her throat. Song Wuyo felt a pain in her throat and coughed softly. Su Jing, who was standing at the side, was very worried that her mistress would be strangled to death by Gu Yanhao. But when she felt the unruly aura coming from Gu Yanhao, she took half a step forward and stopped timidly. Gu Yanhao lowered his head. The distance between their faces was less than 5 centimeters. Song Wuyo could feel a unique male hormone lingering at the tip of her nose. If it was the original owner, she would have been mesmerized by this hormone long ago. So what if I don't let go? Gu Yanhao opened his thin lips and said in a low voice that was filled with endless coldness. His eyes were as deep as a whirlpool. It was easy for a woman's heart to be sucked in and slowly sink into it. Song Wuyo looked at Gu Yanhao coldly. Nothing. Seeing that your face is so dark, it seems that my playing hard to get worked, isn't it? Gu Yanhao narrowed his eyes. She was indeed playing hard to get with him. He thought that she would be able to reflect on herself after being seriously injured this time. He didn't expect her to still be like this. Gu Yanhao abruptly let go of Song Wuyo. He quickly took out a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the hand that had touched her in disgust. His actions made Song Wuyo's heart tighten. She stared at Gu Yanhao's beautiful hands and bitterly laughed in her heart. Was she that dirty in his heart? He had to wipe his hand just to touch her. Su Jing, give me a wet tissue. Song Wuyo looked up and glanced at Su Jing. When Gu Yanhao heard this, he paused in his wiping. Su Jing was slightly stunned. She didn't ask anything and sent over a packet of wet tissue. Song Wuyo took out the wet tissue and wiped her chin and neck in disgust. Su Jing looked at Song Wuyo in surprise. What was Miss doing? Gu Yanhao frowned and looked at Song Wuyo coldly. Song Wuyo's movements were elegant. Her actions were completely different from the Song Wuyo from before. If it was in the past, she would be willing to not wash up for 3 days no matter where he touched her. But today, she despised him. Song Wuyo. It didn't feel good to be despised. Song Wuyo suddenly looked up and flashed a bright smile at Gu Yanhao's handsome face. Gu Yanhao, if there's nothing else, please leave. I need to recuperate. Don't worry, if there's no problem with the divorce agreement, I will sign it as soon as possible. Gu Yanhao snorted coldly. What was wrong with his divorce agreement? Chapter 4. I'll get Ade to come and get it tomorrow, Gu Yanhao said coldly. Take care, I won't see you out. Song Wuyo looked as if she could not wait for Gu Yanhao to get out of her sight. Seeing her expression, Gu Yanhao's eyes were very malicious. He felt as if he had punched cotton. After Gu Yanhao left, Song Wuyo lazily threw the wet tissue into the rubbish bin. Miss, are you all right? Su Jing came forward and looked at Song Wuyo with a strange expression. Was Miss so affected by the loss of her child that she agreed to sign the papers so easily? Su Jing had worked for the Song family for many years. She knew better than anyone else how much Song Wuyo loved Gu Yanhao. In order to be able to marry Gu Yanhao, she had put in a lot of effort. It was not easy to marry him, so why did she suddenly agree to sign the papers? Previously, when she heard the word divorce, she cried and threw a tantrum, refusing to get a divorce no matter what. Song Wuyo smiled at Su Jing. It's okay, you're in good health. Su Jing was stunned. When did Mrs. Smile become so elegant and dignified? Even a casual smile was so beautiful. In the past, she used to smile often, but it was not as beautiful as it was now. I'm not referring to your body, Su Jing said as she looked at Song Wuyo. Song Wuyo looked at Su Jing with a smile in her eyes. You're referring to the divorce? Yes. Su Jing nodded. Song Wuyo took a deep breath and looked down at the divorce agreement on the quilt. She paused for a moment and said, since fate has ended, we will naturally part ways. Su Jing's little face fell. If you divorce young Master Gu, won't you be fulfilling Mrs. Wish? Song Wuyo raised her head and looked at Su Jing with a faint smile in her beautiful eyes. I just suddenly don't love Gu Yanhao anymore. I'm not helping anyone. Su Jing looked at Song Wuyo's beautiful face, which was still pale, and felt her heart ache. She reached out to hold Song Wuyo's hand and said with a choked voice, Miss, you've suffered. Song Wuyo smiled, but the smile in her eyes disappeared. I won't do it again. He had a good night's sleep. If the doctor hadn't come to check on Song Wuyo would have continued to sleep. She didn't know how many days it had been since she had slept so soundly. After the examination, Song Wuyo leaned against the headboard and ate the apple that Su Jing had peeled for her. At this moment, a tall figure appeared in the ward. He was Gu Yanhao's personal bodyguard, Ade. Song Wuyo glanced at Ade indifferently and continued to eat the apple as if nothing had happened. Gu Yanhao was so anxious for her to sign the papers, yet he hated her so much that he even sent his own bodyguard to collect his divorce agreement. Song Wuyo, look at what kind of man you have fallen in love with. Young madam, I'm here to collect young master's divorce agreement. Ade came to the bedside. His attitude was considered good, but his tone was too cold. Ade was Gu Yanhao's bodyguard, so he naturally knew everything that Song Wuyo had done. He didn't like Song Wuyo at all. She was unruly, willful, selfish, and would kick up a fuss like a shrew over a small matter. She would even jump off a building or hang herself. Which man would like a woman like this? Song Wuyo glanced at the divorce agreement on the bedside table and said indifferently, it's here. Take it back. Ade picked up the divorce agreement and flipped to the signature page. Seeing that the signature page was empty, Ade reminded her, Madam, you haven't signed it yet. There's a problem with the agreement, Song Wuyo said impatiently. Take it back and get Gu Yanhao to rewrite it. What's the problem? Ade asked. Chapter 5. The distribution of assets is unfair. When Su Jing heard this, she looked at Song Wuyo in surprise. When Song Wuyo looked at the agreement, she asked her to look at it as well. She was clear about the contents of the agreement. Ade found the agreement on the distribution of assets. When he saw the numbers on it, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Song Wuyo. I think young master's arrangement is very reasonable. Song Wuyo had finished eating the apple. She elegantly took out a tissue from the bedside table and wiped the water stains on her hands. She looked up and smiled at Ade. Although you are Gu Yanhao's bodyguard, you can't represent him, much less me. What you think is reasonable is useless. Her smile was beautiful, and she exuded an aura of elegance that Ade was unfamiliar with. Her eyes sparkled like stars. Ade's cold eyes flashed with a touch of amazement that he could not detect. Was this the young madam that he knew? This question quickly flashed through Ade's mind. But Ade did not think too much about it. He lowered his head slightly. I'll call young master now. Gu Yanhao was in the CEO's office, looking at the design drafts that Song Jiuyue had sent over. Song Jiuyue sat opposite him. Her beautiful and fair face had a gentle smile as she looked at him quietly. Gu Yanhao, one of the 3 most handsome men in M City. Describing her figure and appearance as devastatingly beautiful or peerlessly beautiful would be too tacky. His family background and ability could be said to be as rich as a country. His aura was noble and elegant. He was so charming from head to toe. Song Jiuyue pursed her lips. It was a disgrace for such an outstanding and perfect man to marry Song Wuyo. But this disgrace would disappear very quickly, because she knew that old Master Gu had agreed to Gu Yanhao and Song Wuyo's divorce. With old Master Gu's approval, Gu Yanhao would definitely be eager to get rid of Song Wuyo. Young Master Gu, how are my design drafts? Song Jiuyue asked softly, her voice as sweet as honey. Gu Yanhao nodded. Not bad. Song Jiuyue smiled gently at his praise. At this moment, the phone on the table rang. Song Jiuyue quickly glanced at it. It was Ade. Gu Yanhao looked up. When he saw the caller ID, his eyes narrowed. He seemed to have guessed the result. His slender and good-looking hand reached over and took the phone. Speak. It was a simple word, but it was filled with a chilling aura. Young master, young madam refuses to sign. On the other end of the phone, Ade said respectfully. Gu Yanhao's lips curled into a sneer. I knew it. That woman wouldn't sign it so easily. She had agreed so readily because she wanted to play hard to get with him. Did she think that he wouldn't force her to sign the papers? In front of him, playing hard to get was useless. Song Jiuyue's eyes flashed. Sign the papers. Could it be that young Master Gu had sent the divorce agreement to Song Wuyo? Young madam said that young master's assets were distributed unfairly. Ade immediately added. Unfairly. Gu Yanhao's eyes were cold. He had given her so much money, did she think it was unfair? That's what young madam said. Put her on the phone. Ade handed the phone to Song Wuyo. Young madam. Song Wuyo took the phone and put it to her ear. Hi, young Master Gu. The voice from the other end of the phone was crisp and cheerful. Her tone was relaxed. Gu Yanhao couldn't help but frown. Song Wuyo, what tricks are you playing? He had given her $100 million and a high-end apartment. Was that not enough? Chapter 6. Do you think I'm playing tricks with you? Song Wuyo laughed. Young Master Gu, you think too highly of yourself. Song Wuyo. Gu Yanhao suddenly felt irritated after being rejected by this woman several times. The divorce agreement has been redrafted, but the property distribution clause needs to be changed. Gu Yanhao's lips curved into a cold smile. How do you want to change it? I want 10% of the shares of the Gu Clan Corporation and the villa in Nanjiang Regency. Also, you have to transfer 500 million yuan to my account. Song Wuyo said it casually, but Ade and Su Jing were stunned. The villa and 500 million yuan were not a problem, but what shocked them was 10% of the shares of the Gu Clan Corporation. Ade glared at Song Wuyo unhappily. Was she robbing him? Gu Yanhao's deep eyes were filled with shock when he heard this. His voice was as cold as ice. Song Wuyo, you think too highly of yourself. Are you worth that much money? It's not up to me to decide whether I'm worth that much money or not. It's up to you to decide. If you think it's worth it, you can write it according to my instructions. If you don't think it's worth it, it's fine too. I'll pretend that I've never seen this divorce agreement and won't sign it. Song Wuyo smiled calmly. I have ways to make you sign it. Then we'll talk about it when you have a way. Song Woo did not hang up the phone. Instead, she handed the phone back to Ade. Take your phone and get out. Don't appear in front of me. You're an eyesore. These words entered Gu Yenhao's ears without missing a word. Gu Yenhao frowned. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. They were as cold as ice. She found Ade an eyesore. Hadn't she been pleasantly surprised when she saw Ade in the past? Young Master Gu, is Wuyo unwilling to sign the divorce papers? Song Joyue looked at Gu Yenhao and asked carefully. Gu Yenhao glanced at Song Joyue and handed the design draft to her. He didn't answer her question directly, but said in a low voice, the design draft is not bad. It won't be a problem to participate in this year's fashion contest. Song Joyue took the design draft with some disappointment. Then I'll go back and make the final product. Okay, Gu Yenhao responded, then took out other documents and began to review them seriously. Men who worked hard were the most handsome. Moreover, Gu Yenhao was already unreasonably handsome. If he worked so hard, he was so handsome that Song Joyue couldn't take her eyes off him. After a few seconds, Gu Yenhao looked up at Song Joyue. Why aren't you leaving? With that, he lowered his head and continued working. A look of disappointment flashed past Song Joyue's eyes. She got up and left the CEO's office. After Song Joyue left, Gu Yenhao slowly raised his head and narrowed his eyes. His gaze was unfathomable. 10% of Gu Clan Corporation's shares? How could she even think of that? With 10% of the company's shares, her monthly income would be enough for her to squander for the rest of her life. This woman was asking for too much. After 2 days of observation, Song Woo was discharged. She took a taxi and returned to the villa that she and Gu Yenhao were staying at. Although Gu Yenhao didn't love her and hated her, he would at least come home every night. Standing in the middle of the living room, Song Woo frowned as she looked around at the luxurious but low-key villa. Why did she want Gu Yenhao to leave this villa to her? Was it because it was valuable? No. It was because Song Woo was meeting Gu Yenhao here for the first time. Miss, go upstairs and rest first. I'll cook for you. I'll call you down to eat when it's ready. Su Jing came in front of Song Woo and smiled. Chapter 7. Song Woo looked at Su Jing's smiling face and her mind suddenly became muddy. The original owner's memory was intermittent and not everything was present. There are no other helpers in such a big villa? She asked. Su Jing was stunned. Miss, those helpers were all fired by you. Have you forgotten? Song Woo frowned even deeper as she tried hard to recall. Really? Su Jing saw that she was trying hard to recall something and looked at her with heartache. Miss, you were in a coma for so long. It's normal that you can't remember some things when you just woke up. Normal. There were 5 helpers working here before. Those helpers were all very young and beautiful, I know. Song Woo suddenly interrupted Su Jing. Although she didn't completely recall what was going on, Song Woo knew what was going on when she heard Su Jing mention young and beautiful. The original owner was a very petty woman. After marrying Gu Yenhao, she was always suspicious and became jealous easily. Whenever she saw a beautiful young woman appear by Gu Yenhao's side, she couldn't wait for the other party to die. Gu Yenhao returned to the villa every day. The original owner naturally couldn't tolerate those young and beautiful helpers appearing in front of Gu Yenhao every day, so she fired them. All the work in the villa was done by Su Jing. Then I'll go and cook for you. Su Jing turned around and went into the kitchen. Song Woo looked at Su Jing's back view thoughtfully. After lunch, Song Woo laid on the wide double bed and thought about a lot of things. She suddenly came to this strange world and she still hadn't adapted to it. Although she was the daughter of the Song family, she was Song Jinhua's mistress outside. Her dancer mother died when she was 5 years old. It was at that time that Song Jinhua brought her back to the Song family. In the Song family, she was always abused by her stepmother. Actually, Song Wuyo didn't like that family at all. Actually, she wasn't really willful and unruly. She only resisted and talked back when she was beaten by her stepmother. Sometimes, she even fought back. She didn't know why the people outside were crazily saying that she was willful, unruly, and uneducated. These were not important anymore. Right now, she had to think of a way to make her life more exciting. Given how much Gu Yanhao hated her, he would definitely divorce her. Song Wuyo turned over. Her reputation in M City was terrible, and it was not easy for her to find a good job. She believed that as long as she divorced Gu Yanhao, the Song family would never let her step into the door again. Was that why she wanted Gu Yanhao to give her so much money? She asked Gu Yanhao to give her 10% of the shares. In the end, it wasn't just for money, but because the original owner's love for him was still in her heart. Of course, Gu Yanhao wouldn't agree to give her shares. Song Wuyo slept all the way until 10:00 at night. Su Jing made nutritious porridge for her. After eating 2 bowls, she was covered in sweat. She went back to the bedroom to take a shower. She was not used to taking a shower with a lotus, so she took a bath. Soaking in the warm water, Song Wuyo couldn't help but think of her previous life. Ever since she had been banished to the cold palace, she had never taken such a comfortable hot bath. It was good to be reborn. In the future, no matter what happened, she would love herself well and let herself live comfortably. When Gu Yanhao returned to the villa, Su Jing, who lived on the first floor, had already turned off the lights and gone to bed. When he saw that the lights in the bedroom were on, he thought that he had forgotten to turn them off in the morning. Gu Yanhao didn't expect that Song Wuyo was back. Chapter 8. Gu Yanhao entered the villa. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. He didn't need to turn on the lights to change his shoes and head upstairs. When he returned to the bedroom, he took off his jacket and threw it on the sofa. Then, he walked to the walk-in closet while tugging at his tie. Suddenly, Gu Yanhao stopped. His eyes narrowed dangerously. He turned around and glanced sharply at the bathroom. There was someone in there. Being extremely vigilant, he smelled a scent that didn't belong to him drifting out from inside. Gu Yanhao walked slowly to the bathroom. The door was closed and wasn't locked. He gently pushed the door open. When the door was pushed open, a light and elegant fragrance wafted into his nose. Gu Yanhao didn't dislike this fragrance. Instead, he felt that it smelled very good. Song Wuyo. When he saw the woman sleeping by the side of the bathtub, Gu Yanhao's pupils shrank. His gaze deepened. The water in the bathtub was very clear. Song Wuyo soaked in it as if she was wearing a thin, transparent layer of satin. She was beautiful and mysterious at the same time. Gu Yanhao saw that her figure was beautiful and graceful. Every part of her body seemed to have been created by the hands of a divine condor. There wasn't a single flaw left. For a moment, Gu Yanhao, who was abstinent, was stunned by the scene in front of him. However, it was only for a moment because in the next second, Song Wuyo suddenly opened her eyes. Song Wuyo, who was taking a nap, suddenly opened her eyes as if she knew that someone had entered. When she saw a living man standing in front of her, she was shocked. She stood up reflexively. Because her movements were too hasty, she slipped and fell backward. When a person was in danger, their survival instincts would be to grab randomly. When Song Wuyo fell, she instinctively reached out and grabbed Gu Yanhao's arm. Gu Yanhao's eyes darkened. He instinctively swung his hand, wanting to shake Song Wuyo off. But he didn't expect that his movement would cause him to lose his balance. Being pulled forward by Song Wuyo, he slipped and fell into the bathtub. Poochie! The water in the bathtub splashed. Ah! Song Wuyo's cry of pain rang out. Her head hit the side of the bathroom. Before she could react, Gu Yanhao's huge body was already on top of her. Gu Yanhao, get lost. Song Wuyo was shocked at first, then she pushed Gu Yanhao's body hard. Why are you acting all high and mighty? Weren't you the one who pulled me down? Gu Yanhao placed his hands on both sides of Song Wuyo's body. Just now, when his sturdy body bumped into her soft body, his breathing suddenly stopped, and a terrible feeling followed. In order not to let Song Wuyo notice his loss of self-control, he propped himself up and kept a distance from her. I didn't do it on purpose. Her nose was filled with his scent. Song Wuyo's heart skipped a beat. Whether you did it on purpose or not, the result is the same. You have successfully made me fall on top of you. Gu Yanhao looked coldly at Song Wuyo. Song Wuyo's face turned red. She pushed Gu Yanhao's body with both hands. Get up. Song Wuyo, your ability to play hard to get is getting better and better. Gu Yanhao said sarcastically. Since you know that I'm playing hard to get, why are you still not getting up? Is it because you already have a good impression of me? Song Wuyo glanced at her body and suddenly smiled charmingly. Or is it because you can't resist the temptation of my body? What do you think? Gu Yanhao's gaze was like a sword. Is that all you've got? Song Wuyo smiled indifferently with a trace of disdain in her eyes. Chapter 9. Catching the disdain in her eyes, Gu Yanhao wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed. He pinched Song Wuyo's chin, his eyes glinting coldly. Song Wuyo, you used to think of ways to get into my bed. Now that such a good opportunity is in front of you, why don't you cherish it? Disgusting. Song Wuyo cursed in her heart. Then she looked at Gu Yanhao and smiled sweetly. I want to, but I just had a miscarriage. My body doesn't allow it. Gu Yanhao, Song Wuyo smiled sweetly, but there wasn't any warmth in her eyes. She raised her hand and gently placed her fingers on Gu Yanhao's chest. Gu Yanhao, do you regret treating me like that now? Her movements were very gentle and seductive. Gu Yanhao lowered his eyes and looked at the hand that was drawing circles on his chest. Her hand was very fair and tender. Her fingers were long and slender. They were very beautiful. She used just the right amount of strength to draw the circles, and it made his breath catch. Looking at her body in the water, Gu Yanhao's eyes darkened. Gu Yanhao hated this feeling. His gaze turned cold as he slapped away Song Wuyo's hand, got up abruptly, and left the bathtub. I'll give you 1 minute to get out. Gu Yanhao said coldly, then strode out of the bathroom. Song Wuyo sat up slowly. She held the side of the bathtub and frowned. Why was this body so weak? In her previous life, she had fought on the battlefield for more than 10 years and was very skilled. Now, this body was so weak that she couldn't even control it. Song Wuyo gritted her teeth, got up, and put on the nightgown on the shelf. She didn't wear any shoes and walked out of the bathroom barefoot. Gu Yanhao had already taken off his wet clothes and put on a dark blue nightgown. He sat on the sofa lazily and waited for Song Wuyo to come out. The man's cold eyes glanced at the pair of bare feet. Knowing that she had a miscarriage, she still didn't wear shoes. Wasn't she afraid of catching a cold? Song Wuyo came to the bed and wrapped her wet hair with a towel. Then, she sat down and looked at Gu Yanhao with a smile that was not a smile. Gu Yanhao raised his eyebrows. How could her expression be so noble and dignified? Her posture was straight and her hands were placed on her lap. Why did she look so much like those imperial concubines in ancient dramas? Gu Yanhao curled his lips into a mocking smile. This woman really knew how to act. Other than the company's shares, I can give you anything you want as long as you sign it. Gu Yanhao said coldly. When Song Wuyo heard this, her heart sank. He couldn't wait to get rid of her and divorce her. You can give me anything I want. She smiled brightly. Seeing her smiling face, Gu Yanhao's eyes inadvertently darkened. I want your heart. Can you give it to me? Song Wuyo. Gu Yanhao's eyes were like torches. I'm sorry. Song Wuyo smiled. Other than the Gu clan group's shares, I don't want anything else for the time being. Don't even think about the Gu clan group's shares. Then I can't sign the divorce agreement. Gu Yanhao sneered. Whether you sign it or not, this divorce is set in stone. There are countless people who know how to sign Song Wuyo. Song Wuyo narrowed her eyes. You want to impersonate me to sign it? Gu Yanhao looked at Song Wuyo coldly. I told you, I have a way. The impersonation of the signature is invalid. It's not up to you whether it's valid or not. In M City, I, Gu Yanhao, have the final say in everything. Chapter 10. That's right, in M City, he had the final say in everything. He was the leader of M City, a powerful and influential figure. It was said that the next president had to go through his vote. Although he was a businessman, he was able to do whatever he wanted in Country L. He was born to be the king of the world. Song Wuyo smiled. Since you have the final say in everything, do you still need my signature? Can't you just declare that we are divorced? Gu Yanhao looked at Song Wuyo dangerously. Song Wuyo, I asked you to sign because I think highly of you. Don't be ungrateful. If you really wait until the day I declare that we are divorced, you won't get a single cent and will leave with nothing. Her. Song Wuyo smiled sarcastically. My husband, who has always hated me, suddenly said that he thinks highly of me. Should I be happy or angry? Her smile was glaring to the eyes. Gu Yanhao felt a stinging pain in his eyes when he looked at her for an extra second. Gu Yanhao stood up from the sofa and said coldly, I'll give you a week to think about it. Come and find me after you've thought it through. With that, he strode out of the bedroom with his long legs. When he reached the bedroom door, Gu Yanhao suddenly thought of something and stopped in his tracks. He turned around and looked at Song Wuyo maliciously. Get out, this is my bedroom. Song Wuyo was stunned. She was used to it because the original owner liked to sleep in Gu Yanhao's bedroom. When she came back today, she naturally went to his bedroom to rest and take a shower. Previously, Gu Yanhao knew that she wanted to climb into his bed, so he would lock the bedroom door after he went out. These days, when she was in a coma and hospitalized, Gu Yanhao thought that she would never wake up, so he didn't lock the bedroom door. He didn't expect that this woman wanted to stay in his bedroom the moment she came back. Song Wuyo got up and walked out of the bedroom. When she passed by Gu Yanhao, she didn't even look at him and walked right past him. Gu Yanhao looked at her coldly. His gaze was so sharp that it was as if he wanted to see through her. He always felt that she had changed. She had become different from the uninjured Song Wuyo. However, he couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different. He only knew that her walking posture had become very graceful. When she walked past him, a very unique and elegant fragrance emanated from her body and drifted into his nostrils. Gu Yanhao raised his eyebrows. This elegant fragrance did not come from the shower gel or shampoo he usually used. Damn it! Gu Yanhao closed the door in annoyance. How could he not dislike the smell? Didn't he hate anything that belonged to Song Wuyo? Song Wuyo used the memory of the original owner to return to her room. The room was decorated in pink and it looked like a princess room. But when she saw that the bedding, sheets and walls were all pink, Song Wuyo pursed her lips. She felt that this color was very childish. She forgot that when the original owner died in the car accident, she was only 21 years old. So now, she had the appearance of a 20-year-old and the wisdom of a 33-year-old. And the original owner was very childish. Otherwise, she wouldn't be jealous of Gu Yanhao so easily and shout that she wanted to jump off a building and slit her veins. Song Wuyo came to the dressing table and sat down. She raised her eyes and looked at her face in the mirror. It was a very delicate face. The curve of her neck was very beautiful like a swan's neck. Her skin was as white as a freshly peeled egg white. Her long eyelashes curled beautifully like a black fan. When she blinked, her eyelids flickered, making her eyes dark and clear as the stars. Chapter 11. Song Wuyo raised his hands and gently patted the devastatingly beautiful face. Look at you. You have such a beautiful face. Why don't you make good use of it? You made Gu Yanhao hate you so much, it's so sad. After a pause, Song Wuyo's eyes dimmed. She looked at herself in the mirror and bitterly smiled. How can I not be sad? I also have a beautiful face, and I fought with him. And in the end, he gave me 3 feet of white silk. Gu Yanhao, you are so cruel. Song Wuyo woke up when the sun was shining on her butt. After washing up, she prepared to change her clothes. When she stood in front of the wardrobe, she was dumbfounded. What kind of nondescript clothes were in the wardrobe? The top, if it was not suspenders, it would show the navel, it would be low-cut and it would show half of the body. The trousers and skirts were very short, and none of them covered the knees. Song Wuyo felt these clothes were very vulgar. The host thought that if she wore revealing clothes, Gu Yanhao would notice her and look at her more. She thought that if she showed off her perfect figure, he would not be able to resist the temptation and fall in love with her. So, her clothes were made of very little fabric. But she did not know that the less she wore, the more Gu Yanhao hated her. People outside would spread rumors that she was wild. Song Wuyo rummaged through the wardrobe and finally found a purple short-sleeved dress. After changing the dress, Song Wuyo accidentally saw a unique hairpin on the dressing table. Song Wuyo smiled and tied her waist-length hair into a bun. Then, she used the hairpin to fasten it. Su Jing, who was wiping the floor, inadvertently looked up and saw a woman in purple walking down the stairs. She was startled and thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Su Jing threw away the cloth and rubbed her eyes. Then she opened her eyes wide and looked at the woman in the stairwell. Beautiful. Stunning. Devastatingly beautiful. Peerless. But Su Jing opened her mouth slightly and suddenly felt her mouth was dry. She had difficulty swallowing her saliva. When did her young miss become so elegant and beautiful? Su Jing had been by Song Wuyo's side for many years. She couldn't be more familiar with her. The woman who walked down looked like her family's young miss, but the way she walked and ran, as well as the temperament she unconsciously exuded, made her seem like a completely different person from the previous young Mississippi. The long purple dress was simple, but when she wore it, she looked as beautiful as a purple fairy. As she walked, her skirt fluttered slightly, giving off an awe-inspiring aura of a flourishing age. She held her hands together and placed them casually in front of her abdomen. She walked with her head held high and her chest puffed out. Her gait was slow and graceful. "Me. Miss. Is that you?" Su Jing swallowed her saliva with difficulty as she stared at Song Wuyo and asked. Not to mention that the young Miss's temperament and posture had completely changed. When had the young Miss she knew ever worn such an orthodox dress? Every day, she would wear revealing clothes. She did not look like the daughter of a wealthy family, let alone the wife of a wealthy family. Today, the young Miss seemed to have changed into a different person. She was wearing a long dress. Song Wuyo smiled. Her smile was a little devilish. If it's not me, who else could it be? Miss, why are you dressed like this today? Su Jing stood up and looked at Song Wuyo. The young Miss dressed like this was too beautiful. Song Wuyo looked at Su Jing. Is it not good to dress like this? Su Jing nodded vigorously. Good. 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 Very good. Chapter 12. Song Wuyo smiled when she saw that her eyes were sparkling with amazement. The clothes in the wardrobe are too thin. I just had a miscarriage. It's not good to wear such thin clothes and catch a cold. Miss, you can wear this in the future. You look much better now, Su Jing said with a smile. Song Wuyo smiled. Is that so? Yes. All right then, I'll wear this in the future, Song Wuyo said as she took small steps towards the dining room. Su Jing turned around and looked at Song Wuyo in a daze. Not only had Miss become prettier, she had also become easier to talk to. In the past, Miss would throw tantrums at her for no reason. Now, Miss would smile at her for no reason. In the dining room, Gu Yanhao was sitting at the head of the table and having his meal. He had heard everything that Song Wuyo and Su Jing had said in the living room. When Su Jing had praised Song Wuyo for looking good in this dress, he had felt an inexplicable curiosity. Before Song Wuyo arrived, his gaze had already drifted to the door from time to time. When Song Wuyo appeared in his line of sight, a look of amazement flashed past his deep and cold eyes and he paused for 2 seconds. Although his curiosity had been aroused, he still despised Song Wuyo in his heart. With her taste and her usual clothes, how beautiful could they be? He had not expected that a simple dress would be able to make her so stunning. Gu Yanhao's gaze couldn't help but land on her. The number of beautiful women who appeared around him was like the stars in the sky, uncountable. There were also many who had better figures and looks than Song Wuyo. But there had never been one who could make him feel stunned. Today, Song Wuyo was the first. Good morning, young Master Gu. Song Wuyo thought that Gu Yanhao had already gone to the company, but she didn't expect that he would still be here leisurely eating breakfast so late. She was startled at first, then she smiled brightly at Gu Yanhao and greeted him. Song Wuyo, are you possessed by a ghost? Gu Yanhao sneered. Song Wuyo's beautiful eyes narrowed. You're the one possessed by a ghost. Was he cursing her so early in the morning? If he's not possessed by a ghost, then he must be crazy. That's right, I'm crazy. You better stay away from me. It's been one night. What do you think? Gu Yanhao asked indifferently. Song Wuyo stopped pulling the chair and looked at Gu Yanhao with disgust. Can't you just let me eat properly? The sooner you think about it, the more compensation you'll get. Gu Yanhao looked up and looked at Song Wuyo as if he was giving alms to her. Song Wuyo narrowed her eyes and looked at Gu Yanhao. She pulled the chair and sat down slowly. Are you in such a hurry to divorce me because you can't wait to marry Song Juyue? That's none of your business. Gu Yanhao paused. You have no right to ask. I'm sorry. Song Wuyo smiled and her eyes were cold. I haven't thought about it yet. Didn't you say that I have a week to think about it? We're still husband and wife for a week, so I have the right to ask about your matters. Gu Yanhao looked at Song Wuyo with an unfathomable gaze. In the past, whenever divorce was mentioned, she would be angry and quarrelsome. Now that divorce was mentioned, she was getting calmer and calmer. This woman was making Gu Yanhao more and more confused. Gu Yanhao frowned. When had he ever understood her? After breakfast, Song Wuyo appeared at the shopping mall in the city center. She planned to buy herself some decent clothes. None of the clothes in her wardrobe fit her. Chapter 13. The shopping building was over 10,000 square meters in size. The 1st to 5th floors were branded clothes stores, the 6th to 8th floors were branded bag stores, the 9th to 11th floors were branded shoe stores, the 11th floor and above were all kinds of entertainment and health centers, and the last 2 floors were the world of foodies. Song Wuyo and Su Jing strolled around on the 1st floor. When they arrived at a chain store called Gu Chun, Song Wuyo stopped. Gu Chun's wardrobe was beautifully designed, luxurious and romantic. The store sold all the brands designed by the Gu clan group. Just the sales of their own chain store alone could reach hundreds of millions every month. Song Wuyo knew that Gu Yanhao was very rich. After scanning the store, Song Wuyo's gaze stopped on the model by the door. The model was wearing an antique dress. The top was a tight pink tube top design, and the bottom was a green smoky gauze dress with scattered flowers. The waist was tied with a white silk bow. The model's hairstyle was very beautiful, and there was a phoenix hairpin in the hair on her temples. At first glance, it gave people a feeling of lightness and flirtatiousness. "Miss, do you think that dress is beautiful?" Su Jing followed Song Wuyo's gaze and saw that her eyes were fixed on the dress. She couldn't help but ask. Song Wuyo retracted her gaze and looked at Su Jing. "Don't you think it's beautiful?" Su Jing nodded. "It's beautiful, but what?" Almost all the clothes in Gu Chun's store were designed by Mississippi. "I think this dress was also designed by her." Su Jing looked at Song Wuyo and said carefully, "Miss, you used to say that the clothes designed by Miss were ugly." Song Wuyo raised her eyebrows and looked thoughtfully at the clothes in the shop. Standing outside, she was stunned by the clothes inside. The clothes inside were not very ugly. Song Wuyo knew that the original owner was jealous and didn't admit Song Jiuyue's ability. That was why she foolishly mocked Song Jiuyue's design in front of Gu Yanhao. In fact, Song Jiuyue was very talented in designing clothes. Otherwise, her reputation in the design industry would not be so influential, and Gu Chun's shop would not be so popular. Song Wuyo suddenly smiled at Su Jing. "Let's go in and have a look." Su Jing was stunned. "Did Miss want to buy clothes designed by Miss?" Song Wuyo stopped beside the model in the antique dress. She stood there and looked at the dress carefully. There were many customers in the spacious and luxurious store. When the salesperson saw that someone had entered, she walked over with a professional smile. "Welcome, to." When she saw Song Wuyo's face, she almost couldn't utter the last word. The salesperson looked at Song Wuyo strangely. "Mrs. President." Song Wuyo was Mrs. Gu with a tarnished reputation in M City. She always appeared in front of people in a nondescript manner and dressed in non-mainstream clothes. Now that Song Wuyo was wearing a purple dress, she looked stunning. People couldn't help but wonder if the person in front of them was the Mrs. Gu they knew. After the salesperson's strange expression, the smile on her face disappeared. She glanced at Song Wuyo with disdain and said coldly, "Take your time to admire it, but don't touch it. The cheapest piece of clothing in the shop costs more than 300,000 yuan. Especially this imperial concubine dress, 700,000 yuan, no discounts, no special prices. Just look, don't touch it. If it gets dirty, you can't afford to pay for it." Chapter 14. After spitting out these words coldly, the salesperson raised her chin arrogantly and turned around to serve other customers. "What an annoying mouth," Su Jing said angrily as she looked at the salesperson. "She's telling the truth." Song Wuyo was not angry at the salesperson's disdain. Instead, she laughed. Her gaze never left the antique dress. "This dress is beautiful, but there are some flaws that need to be fixed. With a little touch of finishing touches, this dress would be perfect." "What do you know?" A sharp and mocking voice came from the door. Song Wuyo turned around and saw a fashionably dressed woman with the aura of a rich family walk in. She was Song Wuyo's second sister, Song Jiumei. This dress was made by Big Sister. She sold 180 pieces in 1 month on the market and brought hundreds of millions of sales to the Gu clan. Sales determine Big Sister's ability. What right do you have to criticize her? Song Wuyo walked up to Song Wuyo and looked at her with arrogance and disdain. When Song Jiumei saw that Song Wuyo's outfit today was very different from before, her disdainful smile became even more obvious. She sneakily looked at Song Wuyo from head to toe. "Oh, you didn't die from the car accident and even changed your image. Oh, I forgot. You don't have an image at all. Song Wuyo, didn't you buy this dress 4 years ago? Why are you still wearing it when the color has faded? You can't bear to throw away a dress from 4 years ago that is already outdated." "That's right. The 3,000 yuan that the Song family gives you every month is gone after a meal. How can you have extra money to buy clothes?" Song Jiumei's words were very sharp and mean. Song Wuyo frowned slightly and quietly turned her body to the side. She even raised her hand to cover her nose as if she had smelled something very bad. She glanced at Song Jiumei in disdain. "Did you not brush your teeth this morning, or did you eat something you shouldn't have for breakfast?" When Song Jiumei heard this, her expression immediately turned ugly. "Song Wuyo, are you saying that my mouth stinks?" Song Wuyo blinked her beautiful eyes innocently. "Did I say that your mouth stinks? I just want to remind you that you have very strong bad breath." Song Wuyo. Song Wuyo's words made Song Jiumei so angry that her face turned red. "This damned woman actually said that I have bad breath." Song Jiumei was the same as Song Juyue. They were both beloved daughters. Being told that she had bad breath by Song Wuyo was like being told that she had no breasts by a man who was unsuccessful in pursuing her. It made her angry and resentful. In this day and age, people who tell the truth seem to have committed a heinous crime. Song Wuyo helplessly shook her head when she saw Song Jiumei's red face. "What are you so proud of?" Song Jiumei sneered. "Although you didn't die in this car accident, the child in your stomach died. My sister said that Grandpa Gu agreed to let young Master Gu divorce you. I'm afraid you won't be able to stay in Mrs. Gu's position for long. When the time comes, I'd like to see if you can still be so proud after being abandoned by the man you love. When the time comes, you might be very disappointed." Song Wuyo sneered, and a look of disdain flashed across her beautiful eyes. "Song Jiumei, please shut your mouth and don't talk to me anymore. I'm a clean freak." Su Jing almost laughed out loud when she heard this. Song Jiumei was furious again. She glared at Song Wuyo and gritted her teeth. "Song Wuyo, how dare you say that I'm dirty?" Chapter 15. Song Wuyo sneered. "I didn't say that you're dirty. I just said that I'm a clean freak. Stay away from me." Song Jiumei was so angry that her face turned red again. She glared at Song Wuyo so fiercely that she wanted to eat her up. "You're clearly saying that I'm dirty." Song Wuyo curled her lips coldly. "If you insist on saying that, I can't do anything about it." "You." Song Jiomei was so angry that she raised her hand, wanting to slap Song Wuyo. In the past, although Song Wuyo was unruly and willful, that was only in front of outsiders. Song Jiomei knew that she was actually a soft bun that was easy to bully. In the past, when she slapped her, she had never dared to fight back because she knew that she still had to rely on the few thousand yuan that the Song family gave her. However, this time, Song Jiomei's raised hand froze in mid-air, unable to swing it down for a long time. She stared at Song Wuyo in a daze. Her stiff expression was as if she had seen a scary female ghost. Song Wuyo faced Song Jiomei's palm without fear. She even raised her chin slightly and curled her lips, looking at Song Jiomei with a smile that was not a smile. Song Jiomei was suddenly frightened by an aura. In the past, whenever she raised her hand, Song Wuyo would turn her face and cower like a straw bag. Today, she did not dodge. Instead, she used an invisible force to force Song Jiomei to stop. Song Jiomei furrowed her brows and looked at Song Wuyo in surprise. Why was she suddenly different from the Song Wuyo of the past? Her aura and temperament were not like the infamous Song Wuyo of the past. You want to hit me? Song Wuyo raised her brows and asked with a faint smile. You deserve to be hit, you bitch. Song Jiomei glared at Song Wuyo angrily. Even though she was frightened by Song Wuyo's aura and pressure, she did not forget her high and mighty status as the daughter of a rich family. She glared at Song Wuyo arrogantly and mockingly. Slut. When Song Wuyo heard this, her eyes narrowed dangerously. When she saw Song Jiomei's arrogant and mocking expression, she suddenly remembered how the Empress had made things difficult for her in her previous life. She and the Emperor had fought for this country together. In the end, the Emperor bestowed her cousin the title of Empress and spoiled her to the heavens. She was just a concubine, and the Empress made things difficult for her everywhere. She even used the Emperor's favor and the Empress's power to torture her out of nothing. Once, the Empress rushed up to her and slapped her. Song Wuyo glared at her angrily. Why did you hit me? The Empress was so angry that her face turned red. She pointed at her and said breathlessly, You bitch should be beaten. Later, Song Wuyo found out why the Empress was so angry. It was because she had a meal with the Emperor that day. What did you just say? Song Wuyo sneered and asked Song Jiomei indifferently. I said, you're a bitch. You deserve a beating. Paw. A loud slap sounded, and it immediately attracted a lot of attention. The slap was not light, and Song Jiomei's face was slapped to the side. 5 deep red fingerprints appeared on her fair face. Su Jing opened her mouth slightly. She looked at Song Wuyo's slapped face in shock, and then looked at Song Wuyo. Young miss, she hit second young miss. After the slap, Song Wuyo retracted her hand and rubbed her sore palm as if nothing had happened. The smug smile on her lips was faintly discernible, and the aura she exuded made everyone present gasp. Everyone says that Mrs. Gu is arrogant, despotic, and unruly. It is indeed so. Chapter 16. She climbed into young Master Gu's bed by hook or by crook. She didn't even restrain herself after becoming his wife. She even hit her own sister. Such a woman is really ruthless. Isn't that so? I heard that she was seriously injured in a car accident some time ago. People outside even said that she was dead. Why was she suddenly discharged? God is too blind. It's not easy to be a good person, but a bad person lives for 100 years. She's Mrs. Gu whose reputation was ruined. I really couldn't tell that she was quite good-looking. Why is her heart so ruthless? What's so good about looking like a vixen? Like mother, like daughter. I heard that her mother was a dancer. After drugging old Master Song, she climbed into his bed. After getting pregnant, she even wanted to force Old Master Song to divorce Mrs. Song. I didn't expect Old Master Song to abandon her. Io, how do you know all this? Mrs. Song and I are good friends. We play cards together every day. What don't I know? When the onlookers saw that Song Wuyo had hit Song Jume, those who knew her and those who didn't started discussing. The unpleasant words all fell on Song Wuyo's side. Song Wuyo, on the other hand, acted as if she did not hear them. She looked at Song Jume calmly with a faint sneer on her lips. After Song Jume, who was doted on by countless people, was hit, she was first shocked. She was stunned for 3 seconds and did not know what had happened. When she reacted, she felt a burning pain on one side of her face. It was as if someone had cut her skin with a knife and poured half a bowl of chilly water in. The burning pain reached her eyes. Song Jume's eyes were red as she glared at Song Wuyo. Her eyes were filled with anger and disbelief. Song Wuyo, how dare you hit me? She roared hysterically. Song Wuyo sneered and took 2 steps forward. Song Jume suddenly felt a suffocating pressure gathering as Song Wuyo approached. Song Jume subconsciously took half a step back, and Song Wuyo took half a step forward. Song Jume looked at Song Wuyo and thought that she was the high and mighty second Mississippi. She could not back down in front of Song Wuyo. Thus, when Song Wuyo took half a step forward, she no longer retreated. Instead, like a proud peacock, she raised her chin and looked at Song Wuyo angrily. Song Wuyo slowly leaned her face close to Song Jume's ear. She smiled and said softly, "You bitch, you deserve to be beaten." When Song Jume heard this, her expression changed drastically. Her face was filled with anger. Song Wuyo, don't be too proud. I'll ask Dad to stop your allowance. Let's see if you still dare to be arrogant in front of me. Everyone in M City knew that Gu Yanhao didn't love Song Wuyo and wouldn't give Song Wuyo money to spend. If even the few thousand yuan from the Song family was cut off, Song Wuyo would have to sweep the streets. If you stop my allowance, I might be even more arrogant. Song Wuyo acted like she didn't care about the money at all. Song Jume was stunned. In the past, Song Wuyo was afraid that the Song family would stop her allowance. That was why she was so submissive in front of her and Song Juyue. Now, she didn't care. Did young Master Gu give her money to spend? How was that possible? Young Master Gu hated her so much. When she was lying in the hospital, young Master Gu didn't even visit her. Even when she miscarried, young Master Gu didn't feel sorry for the child. Instead, he asked old Master Gu to agree to their divorce. From the looks of it, young Master Gu couldn't wait for this woman to get lost. Why would he give her money to spend? Song Jume suddenly thought of something. Could it be that this bitch agreed to the divorce and young Master Gu gave her a lot of assets? Chapter 17. Song Wuyo, you've finally been abandoned by young Master Gu. When Song Jume thought of Gu Yanhao's divorce with Song Wuyo, she forgot about the burning pain on her face and revealed an extremely smug expression. What are you so smug about? Don't tell me you have the chance to walk into the Civil Affairs Bureau with him. Song Wuyo looked at Song Jume mockingly. With Song Wuyo's words, Song Jume was even more certain that Gu Yanhao had already divorced her. I'm just happy for my sister. An idiot will always be an idiot. Even if it's an economic crisis, it won't be expensive. Song Wuyo, how dare you call me an idiot? Song Jume glared at Song Wuyo angrily. You're crazy. Song Wuyo glanced at Song Jume indifferently. From the beginning to the end, Song Jume had confessed without being pressed. You. Song Jume was so angry that her face turned red again. After being scolded by Song Woo-yo again and again today, Song Jo-mei was very angry. She pointed at Song Woo-yo and said angrily, "Song Woo-yo, you're dead meat." After being abandoned by young Master Gu, having her pocket money cut off by the Song family, and not being able to find a good job in M City, she was dead meat. No, it was worse than death. Song Woo-yo snorted. She was not afraid of death at all. "Su Jing, let's go," Song Woo-yo said to Su Jing after glancing at Song Jo-mei coldly. At this moment, the LCD TV hanging on the wall behind the cashier in the shop changed, and a man and a woman appeared. The man and woman on the screen and the host's voice immediately attracted the attention of the people in the shop. When Song Jo-mei saw the two main characters on the screen, her anger disappeared. Her eyes flashed, and she called out to Song Woo-yo, who had yet to leave. "Song Woo-yo, why are you leaving? Look at young Master Gu and my sister. They're so compatible." Su Jing turned her head and glanced at the TV. The camera was focused on Gu Yenhao's handsome face and tall figure. Su Jing glanced at Song Woo-yo and said, "Miss, it's Master Gu. It's not the first time they've appeared on the screen together. What's there to be surprised about?" Song Woo-yo said disdainfully. "You're not jealous. Aren't you sad?" Song Jo-mei raised her chin proudly. "Young Master Gu is your last trump card. Now that he's divorced you, let's see how you'll survive in M City in the future. Before you were abandoned, they would call you Mrs. Gu. Now that you've been abandoned, I'm afraid that in their hearts, you're worse than a dog." Song Woo-yo ignored Song Jo-mei's words and glanced at the TV screen. It wasn't Gu Yenhao's handsomeness that attracted her, nor was it Song Jo-yue's beauty that attracted her attention. Song Woo-yo was interested in the questions that the reporters asked them. Song Jo-yue represented the Gu Clan Corporation in the annual European and American fashion competition. It was said that as long as the fashion design company won the competition, they would have a chance to expand into the international market. In the past, the Gu Clan Corporation had won the competition. This year, there were more competitors and they were very strong. Especially the Gu Clan Corporation's arch-rival, Ame Corporation. The competition hadn't even started yet, but the citizens were already betting on them. This time, the reporters wanted to interview Gu Yenhao to find out how confident he was in winning the competition. These reporters really have nothing better to do. The Gu Clan Corporation's brand has long been popular all over the world and is selling well in the European and American markets. This year, the Gu Clan Corporation will definitely be the champion. Song Jo-mei saw that Song Woo-yo was ignoring her, so she looked at the TV screen proudly. Song Woo-yo glanced at Song Jo-mei coldly and her lips curled into a disdainful sneer. Chapter 18. Ame Group is not bad either. He even said that he will definitely defeat our Gu Clan group, a salesperson said. Song Jo-mei raised her chin and looked down on her opponent. Ame Group wants to win the championship. I'm afraid they have forgotten who the chief designer of the Gu Clan group is. Hearing this, Song Woo-yo snorted coldly. She looked at Song Jo-yue on the screen with a faint smile. Song Jo-yue looked even better on TV than in real life. Her posture was noble and dignified, and she looked like a graceful lady. Her smile was beautiful and generous, and her eyes were dark and spirited. Her clothes were always fashionable, beautiful but not refined. Song Jo-yue was beautiful like this. Everyone felt that only she was worthy of the fairy-like Gu Yenhao. However, Song Woo-yo knew very well that Song Jo-yue was actually very scary when she smiled. Song Woo-yo, there's one more thing that I forgot to tell you. Song Jo-mei turned her head and looked at Song Woo-yo proudly. My sister said that as long as she wins the championship for the Gu Clan group, Old Master Gu will agree to her engagement with young Master Gu. What does that have to do with me? Song Wuyo looked at Song Jiumei with a cold smile. Her attitude and gaze were arrogant and a little arrogant. She did not care about Gu Yanhao and Song Jiuyue at all. Song Jiumei looked at Song Wuyo in a daze. What did that have to do with her? In the past, when young Master Gu wanted to divorce her, didn't she cry her eyes out? In the past, when she saw young Master Gu and big sister together, didn't she kick up a fuss like a shrew? Why did she look like she did not care? Was she faking it? Song Jiumei looked at Song Wuyo, but she did not look like she was pretending. After leaving the shopping mall, Song Wuyo took a taxi back to the villa. Miss, if old master really stops your allowance, what will you do? Su Jing looked worried along the way. Continue to live. Song Wuyo smiled. How can you live without money? Su Jing frowned. Miss, do you really love young Master Gu? Su Jing looked at Song Wuyo and asked. Song Wuyo smiled faintly and asked, what do you think? You love her very, very much. But Master Gu doesn't love you. She knew about this and didn't need to be reminded. Miss, young Master Gu doesn't love you, so don't be so stubborn. Song Wuyo waited for him to continue. Young Master Gu doesn't love you. If he divorced you, why would he give you so much money? Why don't you just agree to sign the papers? Su Jing, are you afraid that you will starve to death if you follow me? Song Wuyo looked at Su Jing and asked. No. Su Jing shook her head. I can go to work. I just care about you. Don't worry, I know what to do. Song Wuyo smiled. Back at the villa. Gu Yanhao crossed his long and straight legs and sat lazily on the sofa, looking at Song Jiuyue's latest design drafts. He valued this annual international fashion competition very much. He looked through Song Jiuyue's draft seriously. Sensing that Song Wuyo had come in, Gu Yanhao looked up and glanced at her. He had seen her in a purple dress in the morning, but he was still stunned when he saw her like this. It was as if seeing her this time was different from seeing her in the morning. But he couldn't tell what was different. Song Wuyo changed her shoes and came in. She glanced at him and walked around him to the stairs without greeting him. Inadvertently, when she glanced at the few design drafts on the coffee table, Song Wuyo slowed down and her gaze fell on one of the design drafts. Chapter 19. The design on the draft was similar to the collar and sleeves of the dresses from her previous life. But it was far from being as beautiful, elegant as the dresses from her previous life. Song Wuyo looked at the two drafts on the side. They were also in a retro style. It was similar to the design of the dress she had seen at the Gu Chun brand store today. Gu Yanhao noticed the way she stared at the design drafts. His thin lips curled into a sneer. He wanted to see how long she was going to keep up the act. In the past, whenever she saw him looking at Song Jiuyue's design drafts, she would say that they were ugly. Once, she even tore up the design drafts in a fit of anger. Gu Yanhao thought that she would not be so calm today. Sure enough, Song Wuyo turned around and smiled at him. These were all designed by Song Jiuyue? Gu Yanhao looked at her coldly. Aren't you asking the obvious? I remember that her works in the previous years were in the fashion line. Why are they in a retro style this year? The clothes of the winner will become the main style in the European and American markets. These styles will slowly become popular in the European and American markets. If one of these works can win this year's competition, the reputation of the designer will spread all over the world. Gu Yanhao looked at Song Wuyo with a half-smile. There was no warmth in his deep eyes as he continued, when the time comes, Song Jiuyue's name will become famous in the design world. She will become the queen that everyone looks up to and the idol that everyone pursues. Song Wuyo smiled and looked at Gu Yanhao quietly. She was aware of Gu Yanhao's ulterior motives. It was not the first time that he had praised Song Jiuyue in front of her. If it had been the original owner, she would have shouted at him to shut up and then ripped the design drafts. Song Wuyo looked at the design drafts on the coffee table again and whispered, "You want to win the championship with these designs?" No matter how soft her voice was, there were only them and Su Jing in the spacious living room, so Gu Yanhao still heard it clearly. Gu Yanhao looked at Song Wuyo mockingly. It was normal for Song Jiuyue to refuse to admit Song Wuyo's strength. He already said that she wouldn't pretend for long. Now, he was back to square one, and his tone was so disdainful. "These works. Can you design something better than this?" Gu Yanhao said coldly. It was not difficult to hear the thick sarcasm and ridicule in his tone. "I'm not a designer," Song Wuyo said. "You're not a designer. What right do you have to comment on these works?" "Because these works are ugly." "Is that so?" Gu Yanhao shook his body and spread his hands on the back of the sofa, looking like a big boss. "Tell me, how are these works ugly?" he said coldly. "I can't say, they're just ugly." Song Wuyo, not only are you jealous, you're also ignorant. Song Wuyo spread her hands, "I can't help it. I was born with it." After a pause, Song Wuyo said, "Gu Yanhao, I don't need the shares of the Gu clan, but I want to work for the Gu clan. Don't even think about it." Gu Yanhao's eyes turned cold when he heard this. His whole body suddenly emitted a cold aura. Even the temperature in the living room dropped. Chapter 20. Instead of letting Song Wuyo work in the Gu clan, it would be better to give her shares. "I still want to work in the design department," Song Wuyo said, ignoring Gu Yanhao's coldness. Actually, Song Wuyo only wanted to work and prove to them that she was not incompetent. However, Gu Yanhao did not think that way. He thought that Song Wuyo was just fooling around. "Song Wuyo, don't treat the Gu clan like a garbage station." In other words, he was implying that Song Wuyo was garbage. Song Wuyo looked at him coldly. "Are you really not going to let me work in the Gu clan? What do you think?" Gu Yanhao looked at her coldly. Song Wuyo smiled. "What if I can help Song Jiuyue win this year's competition?" Gu Yanhao laughed sarcastically. "With your simple brain and well-developed limbs." "Gu Yanhao, are you happy to insult me?" Song Wuyo rolled her eyes at him. "You asked for it. Fine. You won't let me work in the Gu clan and you won't give me any shares in the Gu clan. Then, don't even think about divorcing me." After saying that, Song Wuyo turned around and went upstairs. Gu Yanhao looked at her straight-back view with a profound look in his eyes. Actually, he also felt that Song Jiuyue's designs were not perfect, but he could not point out any flaws. When Song Wuyo said that they were ugly, he felt that these designs were not perfect enough. This damned woman only knew how to affect his mood. Did she think that they were ugly just because she said so? When Song Wuyo returned to her room, she took out all the clothes she had bought today and put them in the washing machine. She sat in front of the bed. She did not know why, but her mind was filled with Song Jiuyue's design drafts. Is this year's main clothing line a retro dress? Gu Yanhao's words rang in his ears. If one of these works can win this competition, the reputation of the designer will spread all over the world. When the time comes, Song Jiuyue's name will become famous in the design world. She will become the queen that everyone looks up to and the idol that everyone pursues. Song Wuyo, don't treat the Gu clan as a garbage station. Thinking of the last sentence, Song Wuyo smiled coldly. In his heart, Song Jiuyue was the queen and she was trash. After all, she still had the memories of the original owner. It was very uncomfortable to be treated like trash by the man she had loved for so many years. Song Woo-yo raised her eyelids and looked at herself in the mirror on the dressing table. She said to the person in the mirror, "Since I've taken over your body and memories, I have to replace you and live as yourself. You have to let the man you love know that you're not a good-for-nothing or a piece of trash." At the Song Villa, Song Jo-mei happily walked into Song Jo-yu's room. "Sister, did young Master Gu divorce Song Woo-yo?" Song Jo-yue, who was revising the design drafts, hurriedly put down her pen and looked up at Song Jo-mei. Song Jo-mei's eyes were shining. She walked over and placed her hands on the table. She looked at Song Jo-yue happily and expectantly. "Sister, is it true? Did young Master Gu divorce Song Woo-yo?" Song Jo-yue did not directly answer Song Jo-mei's question. Seeing that her right cheek was red and swollen, she asked curiously, "What happened to your face?" At the mention of this, Song Jo-mei was filled with hatred. She restrained her gaze and a trace of hatred flashed across her eyes. "Song Woo-yo hit me." Song Jo-yue was shocked. "Song Woo-yo dared to hit you?" Chapter 21. Isn't that right? She survived the car accident and became even more arrogant. "I asked Dad to stop her allowance, and she said it would be better. Did young Master Gu give her money?" Song Jo-yue frowned slightly. "That's why I asked you. Did young Master Gu divorce her?" Song Jo-yue's beautiful eyes narrowed. "I heard that she refused to sign." Song Jo-mei sneered. "She refused to sign, so young Master Gu couldn't do anything to her. Although Song Woo-yo is arrogant and domineering, it's just what outsiders say. Isn't she very afraid of us? How dare she hit you?" Song Jo-yue looked at Song Jo-mei in confusion. Song Jo-mei said angrily, "She went to Guqing shopping mall today and even went to Gu Chun's shop to criticize the clothes you designed. I said a few words to her and she hit me." After saying that, Song Jo-mei's eyes were extremely cold. "Song Woo-yo dared to hit me in front of so many people. When Dad comes back, I will definitely ask him to stop her allowance and make it impossible for her to find a job in M City." After hearing this, Song Jo-yue thought that Song Woo-yo was Gu Yanhao's wife. She appeared in his shop and hit her own sister. Such a big news, of course the media would not miss it. There's no need to stop her allowance. If young Master Gu knows that she hit you, I'm afraid he will hate her even more. It's one thing for young Master Gu to hate her, but I will ask Dad to stop her allowance. Don't you want to see Song Woo-yo begging Dad for money every month?" Song Jo-yue smiled. Song Jo-mei was speechless for a moment. Seeing that she was silent, Song Jo-yue said again, "A few thousand yuan is nothing to us. It's worth it to trample on Song Woo-yo's dignity with a few thousand yuan. But if she didn't die in the car accident, Song Woo-yo is very different from before. She just didn't know if she would be like before and swallow her anger for a few thousand yuan. What's the difference?" Song Jo-yue sneered disdainfully. "She even dared to hit you. She has become more arrogant and ignorant, right? Sister, guess, what's she wearing today? What clothes?" Song Jo-yue's beautiful eyes shone with a playful light. "A skirt from 4 years ago. This Song Woo-yo is such a disgrace. She was still wearing clothes from 4 years ago. How poor was she?" Just as Song Jo-yue had said, the news of Song Woo-yo hitting someone in the Gu Corporation's shop was quickly reported by the media. The report only showed Song Woo-yo and Song Jo-mei confronting each other. Then, Song Woo-yo raised her hand and slapped Song Jo-mei. However, their conversation was not reported. Everyone was on Song Woo-yo's side, so the negative comments were naturally on Song Woo-yo's side. Song Wuyo had become more arrogant after surviving the car accident. So, the rumors spread even more. Everyone hated Song Wuyo even more. At the same time, they felt pity for Gu Yanhao. How could such a capable Gu Yanhao be willing to marry Song Wuyo? Even if old Master Gu forced him, with Gu Yanhao's ability, he could refuse, but he did not. In short, Song Wuyo's reputation became even worse. Gu Yanhao lay lazily on the sofa and looked at the report coldly. The host and the passers-by who were interviewed all accused Song Wuyo of being arrogant and unruly. But, Gu Yanhao frowned. Why couldn't he see a trace of Song Wuyo's arrogance and unruly behavior in this report? Chapter 22. From the beginning to the end, the only clown he saw was Song Jiumei. When Song Jiumei pointed at Song Wuyo and scolded her, she was very calm. Even the way she raised her hand and slapped her was so stylish. If it was in the past, Song Wuyo would never slap someone like this. She would pounce on them and pull their hair. Young master, Manager Liu sent the surveillance video over. At this moment, Ade, who was standing straight outside the living room, came in with his phone. Okay, Gu Yanhao responded expressionlessly. Ade placed his phone on the coffee table and let Gu Yanhao watch the video that was playing. In the video, Song Wuyo and Su Jing appeared in Gu Chun's shop. Gu Yanhao looked at the video coldly. When he saw Song Wuyo scolding Song Jiumei without using any vulgarities, his eyes flashed. This woman made Song Jiumei's face turn red with anger and her neck thicken with just a few words. Her scolding skills were really good. In the video, he heard their conversation clearly. From the video, Song Wuyo did not do anything wrong. She also did not criticize Song Jiuyue's dress. Song Wuyo was deliberately looking for trouble, but the people outside all thought that it was Song Wuyo's fault. Who is she? Gu Yanhao asked coldly after the video ended. They couldn't react for a moment. Who was he asking? But before he could reply, Gu Yanhao's cold voice sounded again. The next time I come to the shop, I don't want to see her around. When De heard this, he immediately understood. He quickly nodded and said respectfully, "Yes, young master." Then he secretly glanced at Gu Yanhao. Since when did young master care so much about young madam's matters? He even fired the salesperson who offended young madam. Ade had just put his phone away when Gu Yanhao's phone rang. She took out her phone and looked at the caller ID, Song Jiuyue. Gu Yanhao's gaze was cold and his tone was indifferent. Speak. Young Master Gu, are you free? I'd like to treat you to a meal. Song Jiuyue stood in front of the audition and turned around to look at her outfit with satisfaction. I'm not free. Gu Yanhao coldly rejected her. Song Jiuyue's smile froze when she heard those two words. I've changed a few parts of the design draft. I was thinking of discussing the design with you over dinner. Send the revised drawings to Li Miwen's email. I'll go over it personally when I get to the company tomorrow. Have you eaten? Gu Yanhao did not answer her and hung up the phone. She threw her phone on the sofa and caught a glimpse of a figure on the stairs. Gu Yanhao shot her a sharp look. What is Song Wuyo doing up there? Su Jing was frightened by his glare and trembled. Sleeping. Gu Yanhao narrowed his eyes when he heard this. That woman had gone to bed so early. Didn't she like to appear in front of him in the past? When he returned to the villa, she would ask him this and that in an annoying manner. Even if he did not answer any of her questions and his face was dark and cold, she would still chatter away fearlessly. Why was she acting so strangely today? Gu Yanhao laughed coldly. Song Wuyo, I'd like to see how long you can keep up this pretense. Song Wuyo was not asleep. She was sitting in front of the dressing table, drawing something. She had just used Su Jing's phone to do some research online. Anyone could participate in this year's international fashion competition, as long as they registered before the registration deadline. There was still half a month before the registration deadline. She wondered if she would be able to draw a decent piece in that time. Chapter 23. The previous host had some skill in drawing, but she was only so-so when it came to fashion design. She spent all her time thinking about how to get Gu Yanhao's favor, how to get his attention, how to become his woman. She even thought about him in class, but in the end she couldn't even get into university. After marrying Gu Yanhao, she thought about how to drive away the women that appeared by his side and how to get his love. In order to get his attention, she argued with him about small things, and after arguing, she would cry. Time was wasted like this. After she stopped going to school, she wanted to work in the Gu clan group like Song Jiuyue, but Gu Yanhao didn't want her. Every time she saw Song Jiuyue's work win awards on TV, she was very jealous. She naively said in front of Gu Yanhao that she wanted to surpass Song Jiuyue, so she went to a fashion design class for half a month. She didn't listen carefully in class and her mind was filled with Gu Yanhao. In half a month, she was tired of it. In this half a month, she didn't even learn the basics of sketching, not to mention designing a dress. Now Song Guo wanted to draw clothes from her previous life, but she found that it was a bit difficult. She drew one after another, but she wasn't satisfied with them. Until she was tired of drawing, she raised her head and faintly looked at the overly delicate face in the mirror. She really felt pity for the previous host. She had such a beautiful face, but her brain wasn't developed. She pestered Gu Yanhao all day and had such a bad personality. With her like this, how could she get Gu Yanhao's love? Even Song Guo didn't like the previous host's personality. Rubbing her aching temples, Song Guo continued to draw. Half an hour later, the outline of the dress in her mind clearly appeared on her drawing paper. She drew the dress that the heartless man in her previous life gave her for the first time. She disguised herself as a man and joined the army with him, then fought side by side. She hadn't worn a dress for a full 8 years. After he returned from conquering his empire, he personally gave her a set of female clothing for her to wear at the celebration banquet. Holding the clothes he gave her, her heart was as sweet as honey. She tried it on that night, and it was beautiful. When she appeared at the celebration banquet wearing it, she immediately stunned everyone present. Song Guo remembered the way he looked at her. It was so passionate and bright. But then, he announced that he was going to marry another woman and make her his empress. As for her, she was only conferred the title of imperial concubine. She was the one who fought with him. She was the one who took care of him when he was injured. She was the one who blocked swords and arrows for him. She was also the one who loved him deeply. In the end, his glory, his wealth, his love, and his empress, all belonged to another woman. It would have been fine if it was another woman, but he still believed that woman's words. In the end, he wronged her, condemned her, exterminated her clan, and granted her death. Thinking of this, the hand that was holding the pen tightened, as if the pen was going to break. All that appeared in her mind were the smiling faces of the heartless man and that woman when they got married. Song Guo's eyes became sad, cold, and hateful. At this moment, there was a sound of steady footsteps at the door. Song Guo immediately turned her head to look. Gu Yanhao was wearing a black suit, his tall figure standing at the door. The warm white light shone on him, adding an ancient sense of mystery to his black suit. The coldness and nobility on him was like that of an emperor, making people feel oppressed. Chapter 24. His cold and noble aura was like that of an emperor, making people feel oppressed. Song Guo looked at his handsome face that was too perfect. At this moment, her mind was in a trance. She thought of Gu Yanhao as the heartless man from her previous life. Song Wuyo was reminiscing about their past, and now she thought of Gu Yanhao as him. Her gaze became even more complicated and filled with a myriad of emotions. The sadness and hatred were extremely obvious. Gu Yanhao had to pass by her room on his way to the study. He didn't know why he stopped at the door of her room to look at her. When he met Song Wuyo's gaze, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned and raise his eyebrows slightly. Their gazes met in the air, and Song Wuyo's gaze became even colder. At this moment, Song Wuyo almost broke the pen in her hand. Why didn't this heartless man believe her? Why did he go back on the oath he made to her? Did he forget who fought side by side with him? Song Wuyo gritted her teeth as she thought of this. Her gaze was so cold that Gu Yanhao frowned. Did this woman hate him a lot? How could she look at him like that? Heartless man. Song Wuyo said fiercely. Just because I didn't give you the shares of the Gu clan group. Gu Yanhao found it funny. It was normal for couples to divorce when there was no love between them. How did he become a heartless man? Hearing his deep and cold voice, Song Wuyo suddenly came back to her senses. She was distracted just now. That's right. Song Wuyo said angrily as she hid the complicated emotions in her eyes. Gu Yanhao's gaze fell on her drawing paper. He was very tall and had good eyesight, so he could see that she was drawing clothes on the paper. He snorted and said in a mocking tone, "You know how to design clothes too." When Song Wuyo heard this, she quickly turned the paper around so that he wouldn't see her drawing. "I won't let you see it." Song Wuyo pressed her hands on the drawing paper. She looked like she would fight Gu Yanhao to the death if he wanted to see it. Gu Yanhao smiled disdainfully. "Do you think I want to see that?" Song Wuyo looked at him indifferently. "Whether you want to see it or not is another matter. I'm afraid that you will copy my work." Ha! Gu Yanhao laughed sarcastically. "With your pig brain, you can draw a work that I want to plagiarize." Song Wuyo, you're getting more and more ignorant. Human head and pig brain. Song Wuyo glared at him and gritted her teeth. She had to prove to him that her work was no worse than Song Jiuyue's. She wanted him to submit to her pig brain. Yes. Song Wuyo suddenly smiled brightly. "I'm getting more and more ignorant. Why would you appear at the door of an ignorant person like me in the middle of the night? Could it be that young Master Gu likes women with pig brains like me? Are you chasing me away?" Gu Yanhao walked in. Song Wuyo raised her eyebrows. What was this man doing in her room? Did he really want to see her designs? Song Wuyo pressed her design drafts tightly with both hands and looked at him guardedly. "Not only am I chasing you away, I also hope that you won't appear in front of me." This way, she wouldn't have to think of that heartless man when she saw his face. If she didn't think of him, she would be in a good mood. If she was in a good mood, her life would be better. Gu Yanhao walked in front of her and looked down at her like a god. The corners of his lips curled up and he sneered. "Song Wuyo, congratulations on going further and further down the road of playing hard to get." Song Wuyo pursed her lips. "Thank you." Gu Yanhao raised his hand and pinched Song Wuyo's chin. "Do you hate me now? Otherwise, why would she look at him like that?" Chapter 25. Yes, Song Wuyo admitted. "I hate you." "How much do you hate me?" Gu Yanhao's eyes were cold. Song Wuyo smiled, but her eyes were calm. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. Gu Yanhao's eyes narrowed when he heard that. He lifted her chin slightly and looked into her eyes. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. What a good saying. You shouldn't have fallen in love with me, Gu Yenhao said coldly. Song Wuyo said calmly, who would want to have dysentery with hair? Who would love if they knew they shouldn't? Gu Yenhao looked into her eyes. He couldn't find any pretense in her eyes. He frowned slightly. Could it be that she had changed completely after surviving the car accident? You hit Song Jiumei today, the man said coldly. Song Wuyo didn't pay attention to the news, so she didn't know that her reputation had been ruined because she had hit Song Jiumei. She thought that Song Jiuyue had told Gu Yenhao that she had hit Song Jiumei. Song Wuyo snorted. She deserved it. Aren't you afraid that Song Nan will stop your allowance? Song Wuyo shrugged nonchalantly. So be it. The woman's hand grabbed the man's wrist that was pinching her chin. Gu Yenhao raised his eyebrows and looked down at that fair hand. Song Wuyo took his hand away calmly and looked up at him with a smile. Gu Yenhao, as long as we don't get a divorce, I'm still your wife. Don't you think you're a failure for making your wife go back to her parents' house like a beggar every month? Gu Yenhao looked at her deeply. You're the one who failed. Damn it. Why did he suddenly feel that her smile was beautiful and charming? You knew that I failed, yet you still married me. Song Wuyo deliberately punched his chest lightly. It was a very seductive action. You're so strong. You could have refused to marry me back then, but you didn't. Do you have feelings for me? When Gu Yenhao heard this, his eyes were so deep that no one could guess what he was thinking. Song Wuyo felt that his eyes were like a magical whirlpool that could easily suck people in and make them sink. You're so annoying, who would have a good impression of you? The man said coldly. You know that I hate you, but you still married me. You married me and then married me. You're such an interesting man. Song Wuyo said with disdain. Let's get down to business. Song Nan has stopped your allowance, so you won't have any money to spend. I advise you to sign it quickly. If she signed it, he would agree to give her 500 million yuan. Song Wuyo sneered. In the end, it's all about signing it. Gu Yenhao, I'm not in a good mood now. Please don't talk to me about the divorce. You'll have to sign it sooner or later. If she signed it now, he would give her a generous compensation. In the future, there might not be. The more you force me, the more I don't want to sign it. You have 1 week to think about it. Gu Yenhao sneered. Then, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the design draft on the stage. Song Wuyo had drawn many designs, and the one that Gu Yenhao grabbed was the one that she had just started. The design was ugly and the style of the clothes was unclear. It was a little like a primary school student who was tinkering. You. Song Wuyo stretched out her hand to snatch it back. But Gu Yenhao raised his arm and her hand could not catch it. Forget it. She would let him see it sooner or later anyway. Gu Yenhao only glanced at it and then ruthlessly crumpled it into a ball and threw it accurately into the rubbish bin by the door. Chapter 26. Gu Yenhao, what are you doing? Song Wuyo stared at Gu Yenhao angrily. Gu Yenhao sneered disdainfully. Can the alterations made by a primary school student be considered a design? What's wrong with the alterations made by a primary school student? Have you forgotten that you used to be a primary school student too? Song Wuyo said angrily. She wasn't upset about her painting, but she was angry at Gu Yenhao for always being so high and mighty. He didn't care about the other party's feelings and casually ruined the work of others. What's wrong with the alterations made by a primary school student? But it's really childish of you to do that at your age. Gu Yenhao's tone was full of disdain. My reputation is already so bad. It doesn't matter if you call me childish. Whether I'm childish or willful, it's none of your business. You're dreaming if you want to work in the Gu clan based on your standards. In order to prove herself, Song Wuyo pulled an all-nighter and finally drew the outfit that she had imagined. She was very satisfied with the outfit she had drawn. She had wanted to show it to Gu Yanhao. But when she thought of his sarcasm and disdain last night, Song Wuyo hesitated. In his eyes, she was nothing. Even if she thought that the outfit she had drawn was acceptable, he might not be satisfied. He might even mock her and attack her. Anyway, she didn't have to rely on the company's name to sign up for the competition. Song Wuyo planned to sign up for the competition herself. Instead of proving herself in front of Gu Yanhao, she would rather prove to everyone that she wasn't as bad as everyone thought. After locking the design drafts in the drawer, Song Wuyo washed her face, changed into the dress that she had bought yesterday, and went downstairs. Usually, Gu Yanhao wouldn't be in the villa at this time. Why hadn't he gone out yet today? Song Wuyo held on to the handrail and walked down step by step. She looked calmly at the man sitting on the sofa. The man elegantly crossed his long legs and sat lazily on the sand, flipping through a magazine. Me. His bodyguard, Ade, was standing behind him. Even though he was just sitting there, he still exuded a domineering aura. Song Wuyo stared at him. Could he be the reincarnation of that heartless man? Otherwise, how could they look so similar? As if sensing her gaze, Gu Yanhao raised his head. The moment their eyes met, Song Wuyo froze for a moment and quickly looked away. Gu Yanhao, on the other hand, looked at her openly and slightly raised his good-looking eyebrows. The light blue dress seemed to suit her skin very well. The long and wide skirt was elegant and soft, like a dancing willow leaf. Her waist was tight, but it was not tight. It showed off her good figure perfectly. It was a simple dress, but it gave her a different flavor when she wore it. Gu Yanhao's deep eyes revealed a glimmer of appreciation that even he didn't know about. His piercing gaze landed on Song Wuyo's legs. The way she walked seemed to be very graceful. He couldn't help but picture this scene in his mind. She was wearing a retro dress designed by Song Juyue and a golden hairpin in her hair. She was walking gracefully on the runway. Song Wuyo saw that he was looking at her in a daze. She rolled her eyes at him coldly and then walked to the dining room. Take a picture of this affection, hairpin. Gu Yanhao came back to his senses. He retracted his gaze and handed the magazine to Ade. Affection. When Song Wuyo heard that, her back stiffened and she stopped in her tracks. She turned around and looked at the magazine in Ade's hand. Seeing that Ade was about to close it, she asked anxiously, "Can I take a look?" Chapter 27. Ade looked at Gu Yanhao with an inquisitive gaze. Gu Yanhao waved his hand and said calmly, "Let her see it." Actually, it wasn't a magazine, but an album of works that would be auctioned at the Century Building next week. Gu Yanhao was the youngest and richest man in M City. The organizer had personally handed the album to him to see if he had any antiques that he liked. It was said that 50% of the money earned from the auction would be donated to orphanages and poor families. To be precise, this was a charity auction. The items in the album were all ancient and rare antiques. It didn't matter if Song Wuyo saw it. She was a pig with a brain and didn't know how to appreciate it. Even if she did, she didn't have much money on her and wouldn't be able to get it. With Gu Yanhao's permission, Ade handed the album to Song Wuyo. Song Wuyo quickly took the album and was stunned when she saw it. She stared straight at the picture on the album. It was a hairpin that she couldn't be more familiar with. It really was her love strings. The first hairpin that the heartless man gave her in her previous life was this hairpin. After thousands of years, it actually came to this century and became an antique to be auctioned. Song Wuyo's shocked eyes were filled with turbulent waves. She had worn this hairpin to death. Now that she was reborn, she had the fate to see it. Seeing that something that originally belonged to her was being auctioned, Song Wuyo couldn't suppress her excitement. The fingers holding the album trembled slightly, but her fingertips were not light. She gripped the paper tightly and the paper was slightly wrinkled. Her rosy fingers were white from the force she exerted. Gu Yanhao just happened to look up. From his angle, he just happened to see the emotions in her eyes and face. He raised his eyebrows and was a little puzzled. Why was she so agitated when she saw this hairpin? The shocking waves in her eyes were filled with hundreds of emotions. She pursed her lips tightly as if she was enduring something. Have you seen enough? Gu Yanhao opened his thin lips and asked lightly. His cold voice was like the tip of a sharp knife, gently cutting Song Wuyo's heart. Song Wuyo felt a pang of pain in her heart. She suddenly came back to her senses and looked at Gu Yanhao. You want to bid for it? The starting bid was $3 million. You like it? Gu Yanhao raised his eyebrows and revealed a mocking smile. Seeing his smile, Song Wuyo knew what he was thinking even without him saying anything. Are there any other photos? Song Wuyo didn't answer him. There was a photo with a similar style, but Song Wuyo was not sure if it was her love strings. After all, high-quality imitations were very well in this era. Even though it wasn't an antique, it was still worth $3 million. If you want to see its true appearance, you can go to the auction next week. Gu Yanhao stretched out his long arm and took the album from Song Wuyo. He lowered his head and looked at the hairpin in the photo. This hairpin is very beautiful, but you don't deserve it. Gu Yanhao looked up and looked at Song Wuyo with a faint smile. Do you know where it came from? When Song Wuyo heard that, she trembled and looked at Gu Yanhao. You know. It was left behind by imperial concubine Song of the Axe dynasty. Song Wuyo's heart felt like it had been knocked hard by something. Chapter 28. Gu Yanhao curled his lips and looked at Song Wuyo with a deep but indifferent gaze. Tell me, how are you worthy of owning something left behind by a concubine? It was mine to begin with. Song Wuyo clenched her fists. When she saw Gu Yanhao's mocking face, she wanted to throw a punch at him and send him flying. She swallowed her anger and suddenly smiled. Even your wife beside me isn't worthy of owning this hairpin. Tell me, in the entire M city, who else has a more honorable status than Mrs. Gu and is more worthy of owning this hairpin? Your status is only in name. Who said so? I slept with you and was even pregnant with your child. It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned this. Once she did, Gu Yanhao's face became very sinister. You're the most despicable and shameless woman I've ever met. Gu Yanhao said coldly. Is it despicable and shameless for a woman to sleep with her husband and be pregnant with her husband's flesh and blood? Those women who cling to other people despite knowing that they have a wife and child are the real despicable and shameless ones, aren't they? Song Wuyo looked at Gu Yanhao coldly. Gu Yanhao, you bought this hairpin because you wanted to give it to Song Juyue. You have a wife and yet you're still thinking about another woman outside. You're not that noble. After saying that, Song Wuyo turned around and entered the restaurant. In a place where Gu Yanhao couldn't see, Song Wuyo's eyes became very gloomy. Forget it. She didn't want the hairpin that heartless man gave her. Gu Yanhao turned his body slightly and looked deeply at Song Wuyo. He raised his eyebrows slightly and seemed to be deep in thought. A charity auction was held on the first floor of the Century building today. The organizer, invited guests, invited sellers, and clients were all present. Although Song Wuyo had a bad reputation in M City, as Mrs. Gu, she was also invited. She held the bidding card and sat quietly with Su Jing in her seat. In front of her sat Song Jiuyue and Song Jiumei. "Big sister, what do you think Song Wuyo, that bitch, is doing here?" Song Jiuyue whispered as she moved her mouth close to Song Jiuyue's ear. Song Jiuyue was like a noble queen as she smiled faintly and said, "Of course it's to bid for the items that we like." She wants to bid for the items displayed today. Song Jiumei's face was filled with disdain. Does she have money? She refused to sign the divorce papers and couldn't get young Master Gu's assets. She was still poor. That's not for us to worry about. Song Jiuyue maintained her elegant smile. Song Jiumei pursed her lips and scanned her surroundings. She saw Gu Yanhao sitting in the guest seat like a god. Song Jiumei gently nudged Song Jiuyue with her shoulder. "Sister, why don't you sit with young Master Gu?" Song Jiuyue glanced at Gu Yanhao and quickly looked away. "He's a special guest today." Song Jiumei smiled. "I heard that there's a hairpin and a beautiful bracelet at the auction this time. I wonder if young Master Gu will bid for either of them for you." When Song Wuyo heard this, she narrowed her eyes and looked at Song Jiuyue indifferently. She knew that Gu Yanhao would bid for the hairpin Enchanting today. Soon, the auction began. Every item that was put up for auction was quickly bought at a high price. Song Wuyo was not interested in other items. She was not interested because she had no money. She had come today to see for herself whether the Enchanting hairpin was the one she had worn in her previous life. Finally, it was time for the Enchanting hairpin to appear. Chapter 29. It appeared in the hands of the exhibitor without any packaging. The beauty was wearing a red cheongsam. Her hands were gently holding the two ends of the hairpin. The hairpin was made of agarwood. The design was simple but elegant. It was placed there quietly and emitted a nice fragrance. There was a snow lotus blooming quietly on the hairpin. There was also a lotus seed-like pendant. It was elegant and otherworldly. The pendant was dark green and shone with a dazzling jade light. In order to make the people present believe that it was the hairpin worn by imperial concubine Song from the X dynasty 1,000 years ago, the beauty held it and walked down under the escort of the security personnel. She showed it to the auctioneers one by one. The host continued to introduce the origin and story of the hairpin. Seeing that the beauty was about to approach her, Song Wuyo's heart tightened. Her gaze was fixed on the hairpin in the beauty's hand. When the beauty walked to her side, Song Wuyo grabbed the beauty's wrist excitedly. She could only not touch it. This was the rule of the auction. Song Wuyo's action made the beauty think that she was going to rob her. She was shocked. Her hand trembled and the hairpin almost fell from her hand. The security personnel quickly stepped forward to stop her, not allowing her to take the next step. The commotion here immediately attracted the attention of everyone present, including Gu Yanhao. "Mrs. Gu, please let go." The security personnel did not dare to go overboard with Song Wuyo because Gu Yanhao was present. Song Wuyo looked straight at the hairpin in the beauty's hand. Her voice trembled slightly. "I want to see the hairpin." The beauty smiled professionally and turned the hairpin around to let Song Wuyo see it clearly. Song Wuyo's face suddenly turned pale. It was not the love string that she wore in her previous life. She let go of the beauty's hand and sat there in a daze. The beauty looked at her in confusion and then went to show it elsewhere. Imperial concubine Song was a strong woman who accompanied Emperor X to fight for the country. She was even more powerful than Hua Mulan. This hairpin was a token of love that Emperor X gave to Imperial concubine Song. I thought that Imperial concubine Song would be favored by Emperor X all her life. I didn't expect Imperial concubine Song to die on the battlefield. After Imperial Concubine Song died, Emperor X was sad. His soldiers sent back Imperial Concubine Song's relics, including this hairpin. Years later, Emperor X finally became the king and conferred Imperial Concubine Song as a first-class Imperial Concubine. The host's sweet and beautiful voice carried a hint of sadness as she introduced the origin of the hairpin and explained the tragic yet great love story between Imperial Concubine Song and Emperor X. Song Wuyo's heart was filled with sorrow as he listened. Was it? She clearly died after that heartless man built her own palace and was conferred the title of Imperial Concubine. Why did the people of this world think that she died on the battlefield? She even described that heartless man as an infatuated man and kept her hairpin all this time. That man, after becoming the emperor, had countless concubines, but only his empress was dead. Would he be sad? Hearing such a story, Song Wuyo was heartbroken and felt that it was ironic. History had really been changed by later generations. Gu Yanhao's eyes were cold and deep. When he saw Song Wuyo's lowered eyes and sad face, he raised his eyebrows. The last time she saw the hairpin in the album, she was also very emotional. Now that she saw the hairpin itself, she was even more emotional and showed such a sad and sorrowful expression. Why? Chapter 30. The story was about her and the heartless man. Although it had been changed a little, it was still very touching. The hairpin was also from the dynasty in her previous life, but it wasn't hers. Song Wuyo thought that after she was given the white silk, her jewelry had been taken away by the palace maid who served her. Then, she left the palace and was imitated by someone. This hairpin then appeared in the eyes of the future generations as time passed. 10 million. 10 million going once. 13 million. Song Wuyo was pulled back to reality by the excited bids. She blinked and her eyelashes trembled slightly. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist as she looked at the stage. As the price increased, the staff became more excited. However, Song Wuyo's expression was indifferent. It was an antique, and its auction value started at 3 million. However, it wasn't her own hairpin. In Song Wuyo's heart, it was worthless. 20 million. Song Jiuyue raised the bidding card, and a clear voice sounded. Song Jiuyue really liked this hairpin. She had originally hoped that Gu Yanhao would bid for it and give it to her. However, the price had increased so much, and Gu Yanhao still hadn't made a move. If someone else won it, wouldn't it be terrible? 20 million going once. 20 million going twice. 21 million. Song Wuyo suddenly raised the bidding card. Su Jing, who was sitting next to her, was shocked when she heard this. Miss. Heavens, 21 million. When did her miss have so much money? Song Wuyo blinked and gave Su Jing a reassuring smile. Young Master Gu gave me 30 million as compensation. I really like this hairpin. I want to buy it, Song Wuyo said softly to Su Jing. Her voice was soft, but Song Jiuyue and Song Jiumei still heard it. Song Jiuyue's lips curled into a smug smile. I won't let her have her way. She raised her sign. 25 million, 26 million. Song Wuyo raised her sign again. Su Jing was speechless. Miss didn't even sign her name, so how could there be any compensation? She was really worried that the young miss wouldn't be able to pay the price in the end. Wouldn't that make people laugh their heads off? Young mistress, you love to be in the limelight. That's how you do it. Gu Yanhao raised his eyebrows. When Song Wuyo suddenly called out a price, a hint of surprise flashed across his deep eyes. This woman actually bid 26 million. Did she have money? 30 million. Song Jiuyue gritted her teeth and raised the price to 30 million. When she raised the sign, Song Jiuyue turned around and smiled at Song Wuyo. Without anyone noticing, she gave Song Wuyo a provocative and arrogant smile. She wanted to snatch things from her. No way. Didn't Song Wuyo only have 30 million? Let's see if she still dares to raise the price. When Song Jiuyue looked over, Song Wuyo showed an angry expression. She even gave Song Jiuyue a look that said, "Can't you give in to me? 30 million, going once. 30 million, going twice, 30 million, I'll add 1,000. Song Wuyo suddenly stood up and said loudly as if she was determined to win. Gu Yanhao's eyes became deeper and deeper. Ha! Song Jiumei sneered sarcastically. She's out of money. 31 million. Song Jiuyue raised the price again. Everyone present was watching the two sisters fight over the hairpin. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.